Hello viewers, welcome to Let's Talk About. Let's talk about is the real understanding of social issues that bother us as Christians. You are welcome to this week's edition. Our topic for tonight's discussion is understanding and caring for the needs of the elderly. To help us with this discussion, we have with us today Dr. Akosua Ayman. Dr. Akosua Ayman is a senior lecturer at the Department of Social Work and the Center for Aging Studies of the University of Ghana, Legon. Dr. Akosua Ayman holds a PhD in Social Work with expertise in social gerontology from the University of Ghana. She specializes in gerontology, aging, and social support. She brings with her 37 years of experience in teaching, social work, community development, and elderly care. She has undertaken extensive research on aging, long-term care, and social well-being. She is a champion of elderly welfare and stakeholder engagement at the Center for Aging Studies of the University of Ghana. Your host tonight is Stephen Doche. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you very much, mentors and everybody that made this possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now, the Bible tells us in Psalm 71, verse 9, that it says, and I read, "Do not cast me off in time of old age, forsake me not when my strength is spent." This goes to underscore the fact that even the Bible accepts that there is a concept called aging. Tell us, Dr. Akosua, what is aging and old age?
Thank you very much, Steve. Simply put, aging has several definitions, and simply put, aging is just growing up. And if you want to understand more, aging is a biological, psychological, and social process characterized by gradual physical and cognitive change over time. It's influenced by genetics, your lifestyle, and the environment where you belong. And old age, on the other hand, is defined by chronological age, which is 60 years or 65. For example, in Ghana, our old age chronological is 60 and above. So once around 60, the person goes to retirement. In other jurisdictions, it's and then increase healthcare needs. And so basically, when you talk of old age and aging, these are the two definitions that I can, for the purpose of the program. Thank you.
Thank you. My understanding of your definition, therefore, is that aging is not necessarily growing old. And therefore, there can be other aspects of aging that necessarily don't mean that you have grown physiologically. Would you throw some light on that as well?
Yes, there are several definitions, as I said, but based on your question, in terms of the chronological age, that's where the age in numbers come in. So I'm 20, I'm 30, so on and so forth. But then when it comes to there are some determinants of aging, which is the functional age, the social age, and so on and so forth. So when you're able to function in your area of life, then we could say based on that, you have age. And I want to give an example. In terms of the social age, if you are 15 years, for example, you go to your community and you are about 70, 60 plus, and how to even put on cloth, you don't know how to do it. But there's a 15-year-old person in the community that knows the culture of the people. Then culturally, the person is aged more than you who are chronologically 70. And so it depends on where you find yourself and what you can do at a particular time. There are some people older, but because of maybe ailments, they cannot do things for themselves. And when that happens, functionally, they are not old. But chronologically and physically, they are growing. And if you remember, there's an adage in the Akan Parlance that says that that's the local, meaning If a child, I don't know whether I can explain it, the literally meaning. If a child knows how to wash his or her hands, he can eat with the elderly. Meaning that this child, if he knows the culture very well, can sit with the elderly to take decisions and to do certain things for the community. Whilst an older person, you are here, maybe you've migrated from your local community, you don't know anything about the community. You can't sit with the elders to take a decision on matters affecting the community. But this 15-year-old person who has lived and had worked under the elders and know what to do can. So in that case, culturally, the person is older than you socially. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Your adage brings to mind another adage in Ghana that says, Yomo Bega. To which, I mean, there's no elderly person in Accra. And therefore, what this means is that it depends on how you carry yourself. Then you are described as either aging or aged. Thank you so much. Now, I noticed that there are several myths and misconceptions about aging. People have their own ideas about what aging means. For instance, if you are not just giving the cultural and physiological dimensions to aging a while ago, perhaps I may have been thinking that aging is just growing from a toddler to old age when you have a walking stick. That would have been my understanding. But with what you have just said now, I think that we need to throw some more light on the misconceptions and the myths we have about aging. So give us some examples and explain why those misconceptions have arisen.
Thank you very much, Steve. There are several misconceptions, honestly, and myths about old age and aging. People have ways of, you know, for example, they just look at your facial appearance. Because you have one wrinkles or the other, then you're an older person. You know, sometimes also during menopause and andropause, people take you to be an older person. Meanwhile, it's just a stage. So there are some people, they say that all elderly people suffer from dementia or severe memory loss. It's a myth because it's not all older persons that have cognitive decline. You know, cognitive decline is universal, and many elders retain sharp mental faculties. So the person can be 70, 80, 90, but his faculties are intact and can read and can do so many things. It doesn't mean that because he's 80, he's demented. Dementia starts after 65, but not all older persons end into dementia. Then others also say that older adults are unproductive and lack value to society. This is not true. The reality is that elders often contribute through childcare, cultural preservations, and community leadership. And in Ghana, for example, they serve as mediators and custodians of our oral traditions. So that is why you find them even in politics. We have older persons that have been with us as presidents. And so you cannot throw them away for the fact that they are chronologically aged in terms of 80, 70, and so on and so forth. They are people that are precious. And in Ghana, we revere them. We have them as custodians of our culture, and then also they're mediating and doing all kinds of things for us. And somebody who is not cognitive up there, how can a person do all these things? So those are myths that people say. Others also say that aging leads into unhappiness and then loneliness. It depends on the individual. When you interact very well, you end up, having interactions with other people when you grow older. Older persons that end in loneliness are those ones that when they were young were also lonely, even when they were young. But it's not all older persons that ends in loneliness and unhappiness. Some older persons are very happy. They go to the clubs. They do all kinds of things. Whether they are poor or rich. They do that. They have social connectedness. Their family ties are intact. Their community roles are there. All these things buffer against loneliness because they involve themselves. And many elders also report high life satisfaction. Once you look back and you are satisfied with the life you led, then you are happy. I don't know how many of us read this novel, Bediako the Adventurer. Bediako the Adventurer was when we were going to the secondary school. We read that as a storybook. Yes. And it depicts the Ghanaian elderly, where he sat those two men down to tell them about his life. And when he looks back, reminiscence what, the past experience. He was sharing his bitter and, present experiences with the young man, that I got here not because I did ABC, but because I was able to maintain the relationship that I had before I got to this level. So it's not all older persons that end up in loneliness, and then it's not all older persons that not desire intimacy. Some people think there's a myth that they also don't desire intimacy. No. If a 90-year-old man is strong and is potent, he can give birth to children. We when we're growing up, we heard and saw men old enough, but they had retirement packages in terms of children, because they were potent. Their sexual whatever was intact. It only happens when maybe the person is affected with some diseases that calms down the sexual urges of these individuals. Otherwise, both men and women, when they, get to a certain stage in life, older stage in life, they're so. And sexuality is not just the act of sex, but also having affection, communication, and everything with the opposite sex, conversing with them and doing all kinds of, a little bit of touching here and there. And that is why sometimes when their spouses pass, they are not able to stay for a very long time, especially when a woman dies before the husband. Okay. Then the husband will not have much time. But then a husband can pass, the woman can stay for maybe a little longer. And then the last myth I wrote here was that physical frailty defines old age. No. Many elders maintain active lifestyles. Yes. And chronic illnesses are manageable with proper care and not an inevitability. So once you have the disease and proper care is taken, this person can live for a very long time. So we don't have to judge the book by the cover. Yes. You need to go into details about it before you know exactly what. There's also another adage that says that the best of the pudding is in the eating. So you eat it before you know what is in there. So all these are myths, and we are trying to make it seem correct, but in reality, it's different. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I mean, it's the insights you have given to the misconceptions and the myths are very revealing. My total understanding of it all is that, for the misconception to thrive, depends on the individuals who can be considered as aging or not aging, i.e. your lifestyle, how you carry yourself, how you want to live after retirement, if you want to be, excuse my word, potent after retirement and all of that. It means that there's a sense in which you can have all of that if you decided to do that. Now, but talking about care, the last bit of your answer has triggered my next question, which is that how do you think these myths and misconceptions have affected caregiving to the elderly?
Thank you very much. In fact, caregiving of the older person or the elderly has really been affected, because societies are shifting from the extended family to nuclear, where you have, where I call them where 2 or 3 are gathered. Maybe a husband, a wife, and 1 or 2 children. These days, we don't even give birth to many. Formerly, they were giving birth to 20, 15, but these days, it's not so. And all these structures are, breaking down. But the elders' traditional roles as custodians of knowledge, mediators, and spiritual guides are also diminishing, because the family members that must sit under these older persons to listen to storytelling, moral education are no more there. And those days that the right washes the left washes the right, it's also gone. Because formerly, some of us are beneficiaries of family members taking care of your schooling, of your grown-up everything. Now, all of us seated here, how many people from our family stays with us? Because it is not there. And if you remember, those days, women were giving care. Today, older persons, younger persons are all going to school. And so the former house help is no more there now. If you bring in somebody there to come and take care of your older person, the person will charge you. And then again, the children that we have, these older people have, some of them are abroad. Some of them in the urban centers, so they are not in the local communities where they can take care of their older person. So education has taken them, digital resources have taken them, several other things have taken them. So it makes the care of these older people by their family members very difficult. Some take care from distance, and what they do is to bring money. Can the money goes to the hospital? The money, somebody can take it to go and buy the drugs, but the money itself cannot walk to the pharmacy or to walk to the market to buy things for this older person. So you need the presence of an individual that can take care of you. And so what is being done today, Center for Aging Studies that we do now, is to organize programs such as what you are doing to give education as to how we can care for our older person. We give training to households and children who are caring or caregivers of these elderly. In place of the extended family, we train people, to also be able to take care. And then we train the older person themselves to accept the care that is coming from somebody who is not their family member. It's very difficult for them to accept, especially those who are frail and they need to be bathed and all that. Activities of daily living, they need somebody to help. Sometimes they don't want somebody that is not from their own line, and it's becoming very difficult. So churches come in, other, come in so that we can do this. And then grandmothers, they also advocate initially for maternal health, so we can still go to them for such education. When you go to the West, they don't throw their older people away. For example, if the person was a banker and the person has retired, they use him or her as a resource. So when they employ younger people, they take these younger people to this older person, or they invite this older person to come and give training. In a way, you are expanding the life of this older person, because he now feels he's part of society. But what we do as Ghanaians or Africa is that we close our doors to them. What retirement, we are old school. Some of the words that we use. And so it makes it very difficult. And some of them are also marginalized. The stigma that we spoke about, because of that, they are not able, when they even go to the health facilities, the doctor says, oh, the age, 75. Then you start writing something, because as for 75 there, maybe the person is a diabetic, the person has blood pressure. But mind you, children are also having blood pressures and, and diabetes. So what do we do? So it behoves on all of us to treat the older person with respect, and then be able from our heart to care for them. And churches must also do. Churches, mosques, we all must come together. Because at the end of the day, if you don't go too soon, you are going to be there. You are also going to be an older person. How do you expect your family members or outside to care for you? The way you
exactly, because you are sorry to cut you, but I want us to dwell a little bit on the shifts, as you just explained, from the extended family to the nuclear family types that we have now, and how that is impacting the support system that we used to enjoy, if you like, and how that is bringing, to the fore practices that ordinarily in the past we will not have done. You will not have brought somebody you do not know whatsoever, for instance, into your house to take care of your aging or aged mother, if you like, or your aged father. But we see that as a norm, replacing what should have been part of our social fabric, which means that our social fabric is giving way to something I would call alien to our culture. How would the family be brought into this picture to continue to help the aging and the aged within this shift?
Yes, thank you. The shift, in fact, if you want us to go back to the shift, we might not be able to go 100% to the extended family. But something can be done. What we can do now is that, if we like it or not, society have changed. There's urbanization, there's nucleation, there's westernization, globalization, and everything that is impacting on the life of this older person and us. And so, for example, you come from Shwe community. All the young able bodies, they've left the community and they're in Accra here or elsewhere, fending for themselves and looking for something to bring home. So what do? We need to accept where we are now and then try as much as possible to see whether we can organize programs, bridge the gap. Technology is here. How can we help these older persons, in our communities to use technology in bridging the gap? Now, if you are looking at the differentiation between the rural elderly and the urban, in fact, the urban elderly, most of them, most of them are who are from the formal sector, so maybe they have pension and other things. But when you go to the older, the rural communities,
yes.
they are also maybe purely maybe farmers, or they are in the informal sector. But because in the society, in the communities, they go to funerals, they preside over funerals, they preside over naming ceremonies and all that, their children or their extended family members may not be there like it used to, but the communal living keeps them on. Maybe a Japia, there's a funeral here, go and represent the family. They do with joy, because that is the activity that is there for them. In Accra here, after the retirement, the person is in his or her house. If you happen to be, quote unquote, a bad leader when you were in active service, nobody even comes close or calls you. So sometimes they rather withdraw from society, and society also withdraws from them. That is disengagement. They disengage, and you find them growing weaker and weaker, and in no time, sometimes they die, especially if they did not plan. They did not plan for anything. They may retire when they don't even have a place to put their heads. And then the retirement package cannot, do much for you. So some of them, maybe their children may be in school. So some of them really, die a short time after retirement. But in the communities, yes, their family members may not be there. But then the communal living, sometimes, if the person is somebody who interacts with people, can live a bit longer. And so we need also to preserve efforts such as the Senior Citizen Day that we do, celebrate elder contributions, and then also try to sustain some of these activities that we do for these older persons. Voice-based technology platforms or oral storytelling.
Yeah.
Storytelling that gives us morals.
Yeah.
It's now waning. It's even gone. We don't hear of it. So you find a little bit of them in TV programs, which is not enough. How many older persons have the TV? Let's go to them for these stories, and it will help us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, too. I mean, I would like us to dwell on the care bit for a while longer.
Yeah.
And, well, we'll take a short break very soon. But before we do that, I want us to look at the care bit, because the Bible itself exhorts us in Exodus 20, verse 12. It says that honor your father and your mother, so that your days will be long, okay, in the land that the Lord your God is giving you. So the Bible enjoins us to give care to the elderly. And therefore, the topic we are discussing now is not out of place. It is one that every church member needs to warm up to and to understand, because if you are not aged, you are aging. And I would recommend that viewers bring as many questions as possible so they get answered. So for the care needs and the support, what do you think are the key areas that require assistance for our older adults?
Thank you very much.
After which we'll go for a commercial.
Yes, in fact, caregiving is very important when it comes to an individual or the elderly that we are talking about. Honestly, I would love that we call them older persons or seniors or older people or senior citizens, and not the aged, as people always call them. Now, when you see people's obituary, what do you see? Aged. Maybe 80, 90, meaning his aging process is ended. And so if the person is alive and you keep saying the aged, which we are conversant with, it's like the person is no more existing. So now research has found that some of the new names that we can give them is what I have mentioned. Okay, so maybe way forward we can use that. Now, in terms of caregiving, there are several challenges. So people normally want to shine from caregiving. Now, the areas that we can give care are numerous in terms of their feeding. We call it activities of daily living. So maybe the person cannot walk well, you help the person to walk, bath, feeding, and all that. Bathing, washing up the person's clothes, running errands for the person, even having conversations or communication with that elderly person goes a long way to help the person. And then health care as well. So individuals and family members are the ones that provided this. And as we said, because of the break and because of the migration and stuff, a lot more of these people are no more able to, help these older people take their medications or perform the activities of daily living, and then instrumental activities of daily living. So it is now becoming a problem. And so it behoves on now institutions, such as the religious institutions, particularly the churches and the mosques, to play a crucial role in filling the care vacuum that is left by urbanization, migration, and so on and so forth. And some churches have introduced elder visitations, for example, where you visit the person because the person might not be able to come to church, and then, but in smaller congregations as well. And then also trying to, organize programs for them like walks, programs for them like dance and fitness, for them to take care of them. So for the care needs, they are numerous. We cannot mention all of them here,
Okay,
but there are some that we can, yeah.
Well, we will continue after the short break. We'll soon take a very short break. And we remind our viewers that we are live on our social media platforms, which is both on YouTube and Facebook. And you can find us on Trinity United Church, Legon. You can send your questions and your comments to our social media platforms or to our WhatsApp number, which is 0501 579 996. I take the number again, 0501 579 996. When we return from the break, we will spend a little more time on the caregiving, but this time we'll look at the challenges and the family dynamics, because that's the interesting part of this whole discussion. So that at the end of the day, we'll be walking away with exactly what is required of us as family caregivers, if you like, to the elderly, now that you say that's the only one I should use, and then what we need to do, even if we have to bring another person into our home to give care. So we'll take a short break, and when we come, we'll look at that. Thank you.
With the growing challenges of life in light of both global and domestic development, the Christian is faced with the difficult task of balancing survival within a secular system and at the same time living a Christian life that pleases their Maker. It is for this reason that we need to have frank conversations on the many issues of life through the Christian lens. So, we bring to you Let's Talk About. On Let's Talk About, we talk about health, career, dating, marriage, family, divorce, politics, finance, and all the issues of life that the Christian is confronted with on a daily basis. Join us this and every Wednesday on the YouTube and Facebook pages of Trinity United Church, Legon, and let's talk about life as Christians.
Welcome back. We'd like to remind you, viewers, that we are still discussing the topic, understanding and caring for the needs of the elderly. And to help us understand this is Dr. Akosua Agyeman. Let me remind you again, viewers, that we are live on our social media platforms, which are both on YouTube and Facebook. And you can get us on Trinity United Church, Legon. You can also send in your questions and comments on our social media platforms or to our WhatsApp number 0501 579 996. Our WhatsApp number again is 0501 579 996. Welcome once again. So, Doc, you were telling us about caregiving and the various ways in which we should give care from now on and how innovative we should get. You also spoke about the churches getting involved and the mosques as well. And you also spoke about small congregations getting involved. I know that congregations as big as Trinity United Church and some other churches like the Methodist Church, Presbyterian Church, the EP and all of that, they have congregations large enough for them to have such social, if you like, social programs or interventions that take care of the elderly in the church or the aging in the church. But for small congregations, I ask, because this costs money, this costs time. You need some kind of resource and expertise that you may necessarily not find in the small churches. How do you advise small churches like the one I have behind my window that's made up of only 5 noisy people to take care of the aging or the elderly?
Steve, thank you very much. You made me laugh. Those smaller churches that are making noise, example, the one behind your window.
Yes.
They are the churches that also tell congregation members that your mom or your dad is a witch or a wizard.
Yes.
So for them, yes, some of them, because they don't have the proper training when it comes to pastoral gerontology or the aging issues that I'm talking about. And for the big churches that you mentioned, Methodist, Presby, and so on, when we were talking in there, I told you, Presby churches, they do so well because they have every smaller congregation under Presby has a group for older persons. And myself, for example, we go around to establishing some of these, and they help them in terms of their health, and then when this older person is bereaved and all that they do. So we want what you are doing as Trinity and Presby, Methodist, and other big and small churches that are into aging, and they know. Some of them come to our center to request for our help to establish and make sure we oversee to that, are doing well. But then I made mention of the smaller one, the one-man churches. My church people. When you establish your church, no matter how small it is, mind you, the people that are coming into the church, they have parents. They have one grandmother, one father, or one mother in their family. And so your preaching should not gear towards, this is the person bewitching you. You have a leg problem. It's your auntie that is bewitching. They should go a little bit away from such preaching and then admonish the church members to take care of their home. Bible even establishes that before you can become a pastor to pastor a church, your first pastoral home is your family, where your wife and your children, if you cannot take care of your wife and your children in God's way, you cannot take care of a congregation. So that are your first congregation, and if they turn out to tell you that you, the father or the mother, you are a witch, how will you feel? So they should rearrange their lives, get education, and then make sure they preach sermons that are geared towards helping people, and not all the time preaching the pain, the abayisem in the church, so that they go to the house. And the mother that did not kill you and chew you up when you were a child, now that you are an adult, will chew you. Now, there may be true that these ones may be witches, but how true are they? You also can you tell a witch when you see one? All you have to do is to let this person understand and pray. And if you cover yourself with the blood of Jesus and there are 100 witches in your family, I don't think they can chew you up if you have God on your side. Yes. And so that is what the pastors must preach, so that at least they can take it. Otherwise, we are going to have people not even talking to their parents. And I've been told, it's my mother. A mother that took care of you now is a witch. And sometimes, because they don't have any knowledge, they go in the cruel way, and if you don't take care, they'll go and harm their older persons. And when that happens, it becomes a curse on the younger ones, and then it means that the pastor's assertion that your mother or your father is bewitching you comes true, which might not be. So the one-man churches and the Abonsem churches, those who are all the time preaching some of these things, should be mindful of what they preach, because, sometimes what the pastors preach from the pulpit, People take them, gulp them down, without even going to the Bible to read to see whether it's true or not. So if you're a pastor or a one man leading a church, and the thing that comes out of your mouth is not of God, then you are breaking homes. You can break marriage, you can break family ties, and a whole lot of things. People are not going to their hometowns. People are not going to their parents because of such preachings. And they also don't read the Bible. So this is what happens. But then, if you admonish that, well, Bible says, honor your father and your mother, so that your days will belong. That alone.
Yeah.
So if it means that even if your mom is or father is a witch or wizard, you still just do what is the Bible has asked you to do and see whether they can harm you. They will not be able if you go by the Bible. But once you leave a loophole, then they can get at you if they have. But I don't think any parents, of course there may be some, but not all, will say that, so like the woman that was laid to death.
Yes.
You could see that it was poverty. The person was grown and had no food to eat. And so if people are dying in the family, why do you associate it to her and beat her to death? So these are some of the things. If our laws are strong and the policy is there, some of these things may not, happen. Yeah. But by and large, the churches and must, in fact, sometimes you may want to put the Islamic or the mosque aside and talk, because it's the churches, people that are with the Bible, they sometimes do this. Instead of teaching the members to pray and to read the Bible, they rather hammer on the negatives. And then when it gets into the people's, then they react like this negatively towards their older parents, which is not too good. So I think a lot must be done by the churches, both big and then the big churches too. Please, sometimes I don't know how the church groups work, but then you can bring these together. Like Trinity, you have a Mercury, you have a Mercury, you have the young ones and all that. The education must start from the younger ones, so that when they understand the issues of the elderly, they go home and they treat their parents nicely. And when you treat your parents nicely, it becomes a blessing to you. Or yeah, which are manaduani ni na hwe. Aduane na de na manaduani they so onfanye o. Yes. Otherwise, all of us are going to grow up to be witches.
To be witches.
Because if you are calling your mom a witch today, tomorrow your children because they are watching you. And you remember socialization starts from the family.
Yes.
Whether nuclear or extended.
Yes.
So yes, Auntie AC is this. And auntie where they be aunties and also nenye.
Yes.
And so when you grow up, your own children and their children will also call you same. And that is why some people will not even take their children to see their family members.
Yes.
Thank you.
Hera. We have a comment from our brother Ben Bamfo. He says that we thank God for this enlightening experience. And it is an enlightening experience indeed. Now, but it's as if it was by design that I get involved in this program. Why am I saying so? 4 weeks ago, I traveled to my village, and because I'm aging now, or I'm amongst the elderly now, my younger cousins come and say to me that their father is not feeling well, and that they have talked their father into going to hospital. So this is the flip side of the issue, isn't it? They have talked their father into going to hospital. First and foremost, he says he will not go to the hospital. He doesn't want to be bothered. And then they arrange for a doctor to come and take care of him at home. The doctor comes the first time. The second time, he says the doctor shouldn't come again because he doesn't like, I think he doesn't like the care that the doctor gives him. And then they arrange that, okay, that being the case, he lives alone in a very big house. That being the case, let's get someone to come and live with you so that things like your needs like food, your clothing, washing you, keeping you clean are taken care of. He says, fine, no problem. They bring somebody. 2 days after that, he says the person is a thief and that the person has stolen his money. So now, the children were at their wits' end.
Yeah.
And then I come. Sylvia, Steve has come. Then they called me to go and speak to the father. Then I tried to speak to the father. The father says that they brought thieves to come and steal. And then I tell the father that, yes, I understand, but what are they stealing? He says, his old clothes and his money. Then I ask him, what do you want to do with those things now? He says, he starts a song. He says, Mitiasio,
Minwuyo.
and I'm
Yes.
telling you real story. So there's a sense in which the people who need the care are the ones who resist the care.
Yes.
How do we deal with that situation?
Thank you. It's difficult. Honestly, it's difficult. And what can't run Metias Minwi. So Minwi, I didn't know will be better.
But he's in hospital now. He's
It doesn't matter. Our hospitals will move. So our shirts and that's all one to why do you have to take it? Why do you have to take it? Sometimes they are insuspicious of everybody. Even you that is a brother. So it's the impression that we create for them. And sometimes they are overprotective of what they have. It's the process. Is that if you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the base are the physiological, and then the others travel to the apex. So now, whether he's at the apex or not, or Junebaka, maybe he reminiscences what some of the things he did well and those that he did not do right. Okay, so he suspects everybody coming close. You are not there because of him, but you are there because of the money and all that. So they are suspicious of you. Now what you have to do is that it's a matter of talking. That's why I said that we normally train both the elderly in this situation and then the caregivers. As a caregiver, you don't have to let this bother you. If you let this bother you, it means you cannot help this older person. Because on kasa we ni sika ananata de nkwa, he will tell you that meanwhile, he doesn't even know how to cook. And even if the spouse were to be there, and most of the times we get this from the men, if the spouse were to be there, because the food being prepared is not from Neyre anani baby no dear, forget it. We'll be an the same cry or he doesn't want it. You'll be hearing some of these things, but not. It's very disheartening anyway. But don't let it bother you. Otherwise, you cannot. You know, sometimes you need to swallow some of them. And at that stage, they remember very remote things than things that happen only today. So anytime you sit close to them, he will tell you they are stealing. Maybe somebody stole something from him years ago when he was young. And that has come to now. And that's why he's saying they are stealing. Meanwhile, nobody is stealing anything. And truly, he ought to say, so allow his things, whether tattered or whatever, put it there, let him see. Or let him himself give it out and say that, I've given this to you, and then thank you. And even that, some of them, especially if they are far demented, may come back and say, so those are the things that you are going to encounter. But you don't have to. That is why you need constant training, constant talking to. And we gather the caregivers of these older persons, and then we train them. Communication, how you deal generally with behaviors like this. And then if the person is not frail, if the person is not sick, and the person's cognitive is intact, you can sit close by the person, and then also educate the person, and then tell the person, oh, if you do this, this person will go. If the person leaves you, there won't be anybody to take care of you. For the women, most of the time, we don't get that much. But for the men. For the women, the caregivers always complain. Some of them, if you cook rice for her, you have to eat gari or you have to. And when you trace, you realize that sometimes it was her behavior when she was young. And they carry it forward to old age. So that one, if I don't have to eat the rice, I am in the kitchen cooking. And in the West, you don't have to eat their food, even if they invite you. You don't have to.
Oh, really?
Yes. When you are giving care, the food that you are giving to the older person, you don't have to eat the food. Prepare the food and everything and serve the person. If you eat it, the law will be on your neck. Here in Ghana, we don't have. And most of the times also, it's the family that, give food to this older person. And for all you know, the older person may be giving chop money before he gets that food. So when he gives the chop money, he wants the best of the food. But sir, I was so quiet rice water, no quiet cocoa and so. But when this older person was because we're Yisika, if you are the one taking the money from your pocket to take care of this older person, the story will be different. because on him say onibi. So when he talks, you will not give him. So most of the time when we go to the first, that's what we hear. Because I don't have money to give, they give me A, B, C. Meanwhile, he may be eating, but to tell you they haven't given me food. So in this case, you don't have to be angry. You don't have to be upset. It's a stage and it will pass. You know, so we normally train the caregivers, and then the caregiver, train yourself too. Because as you give care, if you don't take care, you will die, or you will get, especially if the older person is sick, and you are the one turning, bathing, and all that. If you don't take care and go on break or take care of yourself, you may end up dying. And I think a lot of people have heard that he was taking care of the grandmother, he was taking care of the husband, he was taking care of the wife, and meanwhile he has that, because caregiving can be difficult, and it burns you, it wears you, your work and everything. If you don't take care, you have to even leave your work and stay and take care of the older person. So you have to take, so for me, I always ask a question, so who cares for the caregiver who is giving care to this older person? And apart from the individual, then our institutions also come in, the health institutions. How do we give care?
Before we take the health institutions, let's take a question by Richard.
Okay.
Richard, our brother Richard says, we should kindly explain, and I think it's you, not me. He says, you should kindly explain to us, those of them who are viewing and listening to us, you should explain to them the myth that says that it's only the elderly that can use disparaging words on the young ones, which can have an effect on them, I believe, which can have an effect on the younger
lives,
ones.
yes.
They're the ones we call curses.
Yes.
Some of them can be adintio.
Yeah.
Or say, why do we say it's only the elderly? I believe the inverse of this question is that why is it that when younger people say disparaging words to their colleague young ones, or even on the elderly, it doesn't have effect on them?
Yes, I think he has asked a very good question. Yeah. But we have to also know that before the older person gets to where he is and what you are doing and he's asking you not to, and you insist you do, wafamuda. Into our experience, so because he has been there where you are before, anything he says comes to pass. Hey, kwadwo mensa, baby a wuko tie ni yo na se fie bibi say wom enti menko. You know, in the olden days when you are going to marry, they go behind you and check the family that your wife is going to come from or your husband is going to come from, and they can tell that I had the one more meaning they have seen over time the type of disease that are running through that family. Now what do? We meet in Accra, we marry in Accra circle, and then we divorce in circle. So whether you don't even know your husband's people, your husband also don't know your people, all because of church. We met at church and then we married. So when you are doing something and this older person says, Debbie, don't. If you do this and this and this, oh, would you old school do? Would you the other one can be a bem 2 years before? No, what do order? And that is why it is very imperative that we listen to our older persons. And that is why it is good when they are with us. A foot to account from when we talk of counseling, counseling now, but the counseling is from them. Menkasa opinion asebe onim nyansa ni ho, opinion asebe onim nyansa bi wo ho. But most of the times onim nyansa kura esan say wo duru ho no opahwe ye ni ntino. Won so ko duru ho na wo ye the same to obetumi aka acho so obepahwe. And if you don't take care, obepahwe. So that is how and why when they say something, it comes to pass. It does not make them wizards. It does not make them, as I said, spiritually we are not there. So they could be, but all the time when they are talking, listen to the wisdom behind what they are saying. And if you can use that to orient your life, use it. If you think it's not good, wow, that's why they have this idea of meaning, see, I catch on these days, because we don't sit by the older persons, we don't listen to what they say. Their complaints and what they have. But those days, by the fireside, they were telling us morals. Now, where do we get the morals? Maybe from church, because school, courtesy for boys and girls, a year free curriculum. So, if I knew the same if ye, Namia me your mammy minimum, Madam Machro, so who's our failure. So, technology, WhatsApp and thing is what is educating our younger ones.
Yes.
So, when our opinion open the mouth and say, please, and you know, in Ghana, we have 3 categories of opinion.
Yes.
Your opinion for, and your uncle cra, and your mrewa.
Okay.
Akukura poso or abrewa poso.
Okay.
Abrewa poso ni akukura poso no. Baby omodru. And when you are aging, your spiritual life also grows.
Yes.
Baby omodru, so your traditional person baby omodru no. What can some be a tough former ebeben?
Out of experience.
Yes, out of experience. They have the experience and they have the wisdom. Okay. So for me, just listen to what they are saying. Me da se papa, so what can we actually me? What translate you know papa ne woman no? Now for because obi any mistakes and what can you so yes, a mistake we ya. Oh, bachelor.
Pepe.
Ko school say men ko ko na dachi.
Yeah.
If you don't and the adverse happens, then you brand them no. Okay. So and untina omo kan ya na be na younger one they say nyina ye nam the same
Yes.
So we don't know much.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brother Richard. So your question has been answered. You are better off taking the words you call disparaging questions, the disparaging words as elderly advice and go by them so that they don't have negative effects on you. Our brother Fritz Bene, he wants to know whether it's true that most elderly people end up with memory loss.
Thank you very much, Steve. I think when we started, I talked about this.
That, yes.
It's a myth. Not all older persons end up with that. We have, if you come to Legon, for example, there are older professors. I always use one professor who is dead and gone. And when he was alive, I was playing with him and I was asking him questions. You see this professor dressed like a younger person, Otofista, with bushy hair and all that. He was teaching till he died.
Wow.
On part-time. I think he died at 85 or 82. He never had any cognitive impairment or decline. There are several of them in Legon. I'm mentioning Legon because that is where I am. So a lot of older persons don't have that cognitive decline. Those who have that cognitive decline may have been affected by, let's say, dementia, for example, and, you know, maybe the person has a something that is not too good in the brain and all that. Apart from that, cognitive decline in aging does not mean the person, as a result of the person aging. So the memory is gone. It's associated with so many things. Okay. And the doctors, the medical doctors will tell you that the aging itself, the chronological aging itself, will not give you that. The experience, you know, they ask us to be doing exercises, avoiding certain lifestyles. And those lifestyles, if you don't, it may have some effects on you. What you doing, baby? Nothing, you know, mental health. They are all mental health issues. So you can end up the abuse. And so depression, loneliness can end you there. But I bet you a lot of older persons are happy, whether they are poor or they are not. And some of them, they may be sick, as in physical sickness, but they are so happy because the interaction with the family is intact. And so it depends on what the person is involved, his lifestyle. Now, if you change certain lifestyles and you're able to communicate very well with people, you have friends that come across, you may not go down in terms of cognitive, you know, even if it will happen, you know, when you are just maybe close to your very hundreds and after hundred. But we have other centenarians that have their eyes intact. They don't wear glasses like we are wearing. They are okay. Go to the Western countries. They are the ones that the schools use. They mark all our theses. They do all kinds of things that the younger ones, you know, might not have the time to do it. So it's not all of them. It's a myth. Thank you very much.
Essentially what we are saying is that try to stay active, surround yourself with what they call these days positive vibes.
Yeah.
Be everywhere, try not everywhere, try and and interact with people, interact with the society, interact with nature, and all of these things will help you to keep your cognitive facilities or abilities. There's a question from my friend brother Bentete Bamfo. He seems to be taking us on an intriguing path, but we'll ask the question. He says, so aging, growing up, and becoming elderly are God's exit plan for us? Then he goes on to ask, how can we see its pleasant nature?
How can we see the pleasant
nature of aging, growing up, and becoming elderly?
I like practical things.
Yes.
Use Bedi Akuda Adventure Story, for example.
Yes. For those who haven't read it, how will you paraphrase it?
I think it's, you see, the man went through troubles. Friends denied him, put him in prison, lost wife, lost children, family members because he couldn't make. In fact, when you are growing up, don't think because you have children, you are living for the children. Live for yourself too. So that is why we say, you know, the way Obi Oha was me mentino, one crown rested. So this man went through a whole lot, and last minute, God vindicated him. Everything fell into places because he didn't give up. In some of us, when you are confronted with issues like that, you give up. When you give up and you are going back to it, it becomes difficult. So no matter the difficult situations that you are going through, just stay and then don't go. Yeah. And that God has given us long life. So he works us towards it. Our lifestyle is the one that shortens our life. So the fact that you are growing, my father used to call gray hair cemetery flowers. So when we were growing up, he made us to understand that anytime you see somebody with that beautiful gray hair, it means the person has lived long and positive. Today, what do we see? When the gray hairs are coming, we paint it. Because it comes so early. Because of societal and then near Maabano. We Accra, traffic, everything is bazaar. So you are thinking where the next meal is going to come. So if you put yourself in that situation, you become depressed even before you get to a certain level. So, and yet, boneno nyame de bonen kwa befe mo nyame boawo no afrimu kakra didi ye na se wo sori na afo se wini sika nti maybe aduane abedi no una do chiao eto with fish head netwa so automatically we bedru baby na our life if your body cannot contain you anymore. So I think enye nyame ene nyame de osi enyini enyina hoodin when we have successful aging, we have active aging. And so if you are aging actively, it's so nice. Akokra with the 70, 80, but you still can jog, you still can run, you still can walk. Some of us walking with Fred this afternoon, because I have a problem with my leg. He was pa. So if you keep on doing that pa, you may get to 90 years and you can still be walking that you might not need anybody to help you with activities of daily living. And also, no age, you know, and when you there are some older persons, they wish death has come for them, but they are still living because they've really aged successfully and actively. But there are some of them that so even you taking care of him or her, we will think that where they are ready not to hold, and it is the area that makes these older people very vulnerable. And when that comes and you are not able to cope, now I say nyamini ho but onyankopon. Thank you.
So basically, that's not. Aging is not God's. In
fact, aging is not a disease, honestly.
It's not God's exit plan for us.
No.
Now, we are about to end the show, but before we end it, I just want us to touch on this bit of the training facilities you have in Ghana, because you have spoken about the caregivers and how we should help them to give the right care, and how some things are forbidden outside when you are giving care. I remember a story in which somebody put Dettol in England. A caregiver from Ghana put Dettol in the water to use to clean the person to whom she was giving care, and she was fired. Fired because the aging or elderly person said that by putting Dettol in the water, it meant that she was either smelly or had some, either
Bad
body
odor around.
or anything that needed to be cleansed with Dettol. So please tell us in about a minute and a half what training facilities are there in Ghana and how people can access it as caregivers.
Thank you very much. As caregivers, we have diverse caregivers. Those who are in the nursing homes, those who are in the family. And our part of Ghana, we do the family caregiving very well. Now, nursing homes are springing up, and other older people's, recreational centers. And people are being appointed or employed as caregivers. They need a lot of training. And also need the aging policy to back us. Everybody is doing anything. We are not synchronizing what we are doing. For example, we have Mame, nursing home at Adenta. I just said we moved to Pantan, the opposite Focus Hospital. Now, people come from all walks of life to bring their older people there because the director, is a public health nurse. And he has a training institution so that when he employs the caregivers, he trains them the do's and don'ts of the care business. And so they go there and then they apply. Now, those in the informal sector, our homes, we don't have that for them. So what we do now is that we ask people, you bring your caregiver to us at Legon. Let us train that person. And that person will replicate what we train him or her. But unfortunately, sometimes when you train them and they are well-versed in the training, they move. And then they go to some of the homes that can pay them more than you are paying them. But then if it's a national thing, and there's policies backing, then we can have, people. But for now, if I want my father to be cared for by a caregiver, I need to train the person before I put him or her there. Otherwise, the person might not be able to function well. So everybody, if you want to train, you can go to Mamel Training School and then the nursing home to train, or bring your caregiver to Legon to us. We run 3 times a year, caregiving programs for, care workers or caregivers of the family of these older persons. And then the nursing aspect or the geriatric aspect too is there, that when you go to the nursing training, they train you a little bit, so you can replicate that. And for the nursing homes too, those how to give medication and all that are also trained, being catered for by the Mame nursing home, before you can become a caregiver of this elderly person. Thank you.
Thank you too. So now what is your final message to Ghana's youth?
My final message is this: there should be intergenerational solidarity and youth engagement in the caring for elderly. Now, with Ghana's elderly population projected to rise at 9.8% by 2050, we have several things that we have to do, because when you look at the population pyramid, the apex and the base are the same, almost. The middle are the workforce, and all these workforce one day may get to the apex. We have little or nothing at the base to cater to be at the workforce. You remember China once upon a time decided that, yes, no one should give birth to two. And they did the 1-1-1 until all their workforce were older. So they came back pleading that people should give birth to 2, and they didn't. Some of them rejected that. And so a time may come, Ghana, our older persons will be more up, and then it will be difficult for us to get people. And so we have to prepare the youth to support Ghana's aging population. And it requires education, it requires awareness training, and engagement in intergenerational programs. Now, there was this professor that trained me, Professor Araba Apt, in blessed memory. Professor Apt said, old age is young people's problem. And the reason why, yes, old age is young people's problem. The reason why he said that is that those of us, or those of you who were at the old age level, 60 plus years, you've already been there. All the mistakes you made, you know. And now you are trying to help the young ones so that they don't do the same mistakes. And so the young ones need to know these nitty-gritties in aging and old age, so that they don't repeat the faults of their fathers or their mothers or those older persons ahead of them. And so the youth must recognize that aging is a shared reality. Whether we like it or not, all of us are going to, as I said, until you go too soon, you see the captions that are on the obituary. Yes. They all talk, oh, yes. They all have voices. Yes. And look at the way the funerals of such celebration of life, transition, and all that. Now if you're gone too soon, what a shock. Non so almost there. And so these are, it's a real thing that when we foster strong relationship with the elderly, the benefits, it benefits both their generation and our. So as I take care of you, you in turn give me the wisdom and the experience you have that can guide me in my work. Yes. And so the final message to Ghana's youth is simple. Today's youth will be tomorrow's elderly, yes. Whether you like it or not. And then we are penny. So investing in the well-being of older adults ensures a future where dignity, care, respect are accessible to all. And they should know that, the youth should know that life, the start, yes, and the end are similar. So we should all take advantage of the time in between them. And that's what I leave for the youth of today. Thank you very much.
The youth be advised. In life, both the beginning and the end are the same or similar. And the problem of aging is the problem of the youth. Viewers, all too soon we have come to the end of this wonderful edition of Let's Talk About. We have enjoyed the company of Dr. Akosua Agyeman, who is a senior lecturer at the Department of Social Work and Center for Aging Studies of the University of Ghana, Legon. She has taken us through a winding topic of understanding and caring for the needs of the elderly. She has attempted to answer all the questions we have asked her. We hope that you have enjoyed this fruitful discussion. Kindly join us next week for another thought-provoking topic. I've been your host, and my name, as you already know, is Brother Steve Doche. Thank you all, and thank you, Madam Akosua, for coming. Pleased to have you.
Thank you.